Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the MPF webinar for the month of April. We're delighted you're here, and especially delighted to have two really top-level guest speakers. Debbie, how are you doing? Debbie Foster, how are you
I'm
doing
doing
today?
great. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
And Debbie just got off a cruise, folks, and she's hanging out in New Orleans and kind enough to rush to her laptop and join us. So we're happy, Debbie, that you're willing to do that. And Gerry Riskin probably doesn't need an introduction. Gerry, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me so much.
Our pleasure, and thank you for being with us. And Uri Gutfreund, my sidekick here and co-moderator these programs. How are you doing, Uri?
I am doing great, John. Good to be here.
It is, and we took a little bit of time off. We got our big leadership conference we're trying to reassemble for the third time in as many years, and everything looks good, and we're sold out. We're here to preview that conference, and Gerry and Debbie both are on our faculty. So we've invited them to give folks a little taste of the MPF Leadership Conference, what we might be talking about. And as always, we are going to present plenty of benchmarking data during our 60 minutes this afternoon. We are recorded, and we'll send everybody links to the recordings. And if there's anything more you need from us as a participant, please let us know. We want to make sure that you're enjoying this experience and getting lots out of it. We do appreciate your feedback. So at the end of the session, you'll be directed to a link that asks you what you like, what you didn't like, topics for the future, and we really take that in as we seek to develop programming and formats that create value for law firm leaders. Y'all are busy people, and we want to make sure we're on point with our programming and what we're bringing to you. So thank you in advance for your feedback. We will start
John,
here.
before we start the recording, we're getting a little feedback from one of us. Maybe we just want to isolate that. Gerry, is that your fan, maybe?
Just one sec. I didn't know I had any fans, but I'll check.
Gerry's a funny guy, everybody. If you haven't met Gerry, you will today, and I guarantee you will be entertained. So let us go ahead and I'm looking at the hour. We've got about 1 minute, and we will get formally started. There's about 80 managing partners, law firm leaders with us today from all over the country, number of foreign countries, and we'll be doing these every Wednesday. So I'm going to go ahead as I look at the clock and formally begin. And is my PowerPoint slide up there, Uri?
You're looking good, John.
Beautiful. And faculty, y'all got your seatbelts on, ready to go?
Ready to
Thank
go?
you.
Fantastic. Keep your eye on the ball, as they say. And so, welcome everybody to the April 22 edition of the MPF webinar series. We've been presenting these since COVID hit, and Uri and I were looking for something to do. And we've been hitting on a lot of topics and providing lots of data and getting great feedback from those who participated. Uri, always good to see you. We haven't done one of these in, I believe, 2 months.
Yep.
And good to have you with us, as always.
Thank you, John. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, good to be with you. Folks know me. I redo the Managing Partner Conference and a little consulting on the side. And Uri, there's big news since we were last connected in a public forum.
Yes, John. As you have graciously put on screen, I have been lucky enough to join the insurance brokerage of Ames and Goff. We're a national insurance broker for mid-law. So when they found me, I found them. It was just a great match, and I'm super excited. Thanks, John.
Well, congratulations and on your new situation, and wish you the best of luck. Uri runs managing partner gatherings. Sorry,
I was just going to say, where are your fish? I noticed your background looks a little different.
Well, yeah, it's a little Spartan. but I moved world headquarters of Remsen and Managing Partner Forum. So I'm in new digs and still surrounded by boxes. So we'll get the stuff, we'll get books on the shelves and stuff on the walls. Hopefully next time we're together, I'll look a little more polished as far as the background. But yeah, lots of change going on. We got great guest speakers with us today. I'm so honored that Debbie Foster has agreed to participate. Debbie is the managing partner at Affinity Consulting Group. Debbie, say hello.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm very happy to be here and very excited to meet all of you who will be joining us in Atlanta next month at the Managing Partner Forum in person.
And Debbie, tell us a little bit about what Affinity does.
So we do a lot of things, but essentially it boils down to strategy and technology. And some of that is implementation work. Some of that is working on people and leadership and process, how work gets done in a law firm. And then, of course, we started off as a technology company. So making sure that however that work gets done in a law firm is done in a way that leverages the technology that firms have to increase efficiency, profitability, things like that.
Excellent. I got to think as we're coming out of COVID, regrouping, looking at hybrid workplace models, you're quite busy.
Little bit.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you found the time to be with us and look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. Gerry Riskin, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, sir. Thanks for having me. It's such a privilege.
Oh, no, the privilege is ours. And tell us about what Edge International does.
Well, Edge is quite unique in that it's small, but it's global. We really do have people around the world, from India to Australia to England to on so on and so on. And one of the things we have the privilege of doing is some efforts that would be hard for others to do. For example, during COVID, we did a remote working survey that was very substantial. And I'll be referring to that a little bit today. So we have quite specialized people with diverse backgrounds, and we're very collaborative, and we get to do neat stuff.
Excellent. And Gerry, where sit you this afternoon?
I am in Anguilla, Anguilla, for those who have never heard of it. It's a British West Indian island and a dot in the ocean. I've lived here 27 years, many millions of miles flying from here. And for those of you who just want a point of reference quickly, many of you know of St. Martin, much more famous island, and we're close to St. Martin in the Caribbean.
So what's crazy to me here is I sit in Atlanta, Uri sits in Israel. Here's Debbie in a hotel room in New Orleans, and Gerry comes to us from Anguilla. I probably didn't pronounce that properly, but here we are in one room. It's amazing. Technology, Debbie, how it can bring us together, even though we're not in the same room. Firms are really discovering how to apply technology. It took a pandemic for many of us to get a little more comfortable with it, but it's an amazing thing, and so glad everyone is here. We've gone virtual a little bit, trying to bring it back to an in-person meeting. Our signature event, this will be our 20th year. We call the MPF Leadership Conference, and I've had to assemble it and disassemble it and reassemble it now 3 times. And we're not gonna let this thing disassemble. May 4 and 5 here in Atlanta, we will have about 120 managing partners, law firm leaders from all over the United States and several Canadian provinces. And I think people are going to be energized, deliberate, excited to get back together, reconnect, recharge, learn with and from each other. And anyone on this call interested, we do have a few seats remaining. Act fast if you want to claim one. And if you call us in the next day or two, call our office directly and we'll work a discount into the deal so we can fill the room and declare a sellout. But we are really close, and it's an amazing experience. And we'll talk a little bit about it and some of the topics we'll be covering. We're doing some virtual conferences. Let me come back to that because people have come to these things. Nothing replaces the in-person, but we're going to ride some virtual conferences. We're going to do one in June on women in law firm leadership, and we're partnering with Jen Johnson and her team at Calibrate Legal. So be on the lookout for that program. It'll run a half day, and she is assembling an all-women faculty. I mean, these are rock stars, and I'm just having to get out of the way and let Jen and her team do her thing. We do a wrap-up thing in December. You know, we're trying to evolve and adapt, just like everybody, to this new hybrid work environment. Today's program, we'll cut right to the chase. We have 82 managing partners, firm leaders. We're going to preview the conference, predict hot topics, present some data. Uri and I are talking to managing partners, as are Gerry and Debbie, all over the country, and have a good sense of trends and what folks are paying attention to. We got audience polling questions we'll be tossing out there to our registrants today. There's a question box. Uri monitors that. Uri, tell them how that works real quick.
Oh, sure. So in your toolbar on the right side, there's something called questions, and you can post a question there. I'll be keeping an eye on it and mining those for later. We'll bring them up as we can into our discussion.
And we do the audience polling. So have your voting mechanisms ready. Vote early, vote often. I like to kid that I'm in Georgia, where we know how to recount votes and audit election results. So, you know, we'll keep an eye on the vote counting and present some great survey data. Our next webinar, third Wednesday, will be May 18th, topic to be determined. First polling question, we ask this every time, and we'll ask it again here. And this is mostly for Gerry and Debbie to give them a sense of firm sizes represented on today's call. So if you would, go ahead and pick up your ballot or your voting mechanism and tell us your firm size in terms of lawyer headcount. And the votes are coming in. We've got about 60%, 70%. And I'll do my countdown: 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We've got about an 84% voting rate. And here are the firm sizes on today's call. So, you know, real smattering, mid-sized firms. But gives you all a sense of who we're talking to this afternoon. Jumping back to our slide deck is when you're registered, we ask folks to answer some questions. Here's the first one. From the list below, what's your top concern right now as we contemplate this kind of hybrid workplace model that seems to be the trend? And what's your top concern as you're trying to figure this out? And here's what you said. We've been asking this question periodically, Uri, at these programs, and firm culture just seems to be getting higher and higher and higher on the list. Gerry, let me ask you if you think this is should be where the concerns lie for leaders of smaller and mid-sized law firms.
For the most part, yes. One huge exception. Let me start with firm culture. You know, I mentioned that we did a global survey on remote working, and indeed, it has had damaging impact on culture in law firms. Now, only 40% of the law firms reported that they saw significant deterioration, and 7% to an extreme. But I think this is great for the managing partners to have the instincts to know that even going to a hybrid situation, culture is going to be a big deal. It's under attack, etc. The one finding that I can't take issue with the finding because it's statistically accurate.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. But I will say this, managing partners, business development 1%, you've got a bad surprise coming. I'm sorry. It's going to be an 18-wheeler coming down the road right at you. And I'll just say what it is. Business development is not what it used to be, and it can't be what it used to be. Because with dispersed workers, and we're talking hybrid, so some will be dispersed, there are different challenges and different kinds of opportunities that have to be learned and executed. Now, 1% underestimates the level of this challenge. And I just urge everybody that's
Yep.
in this webinar, please take a closer look, or maybe as we discuss, we can go deeper.
And certainly we'll go deeper at our live conference. I think this will be a very timely and popular topic. I was surprised to see BD, the bottom fell out. It's been #1 for years and years and years, and now suddenly, boom, the bottom's fallen out of it. This is no clients, no law firm. Debbie, do you see any surprises in this data that we present coming out of the gates?
I mean, I'll take a little bit of a different approach on the business development. I too, anytime business development is last, there's a problem. But I think the question, your firm's top concern as it contemplates a more hybrid workplace, puts, of those 5, business development probably is at the bottom. Because if they're really not thinking about culture and how they're going to develop their associates so they can retain them, which is a big, big deal these days. If they're not thinking about how they get their work done, business development won't matter because there won't be anyone to work there to do the work for the client. So in some respects, it being last in the top concerns around hybrid workplace makes a ton of sense to me. I think that one of the things that I've learned from working with our clients over the last few years is that there is something to be said for how you accidentally develop a culture. And for law firms, that was when people ran into each other in the hallway or in the bathroom or in the kitchen or getting a coffee or stopping by someone's office or whatever. It was all very accidental. And what's happened to law firms is that carpet just got ripped out from underneath them, and they had no framework for intentionality around culture. And I think the reason why we're seeing that at the top of the list is because law firms are trying to figure out how to do it on purpose. They only knew how to do it by accident, and they didn't actually know how to do it. That was like a car that drove itself. Now they have to figure out how to do it. So I'm not surprised by this, and I love that people are thinking about the right things when it comes to hybrid work.
We are getting a little bit of feedback here. We are the only ones, Mike, so it's coming from one of us. We have often said that as a managing partner, one of your most important contributions is that of keeper of the culture of your law firm. And the culture of your law firm is defined in large part by what you're willing to tolerate. And are we willing to tolerate rogue behavior, selfish behavior, chronic underperformance? I mean, if we're willing to tolerate these things, it permeates the organization. And, addressing these issues early on, and don't let them languish if you've got chronic underperformance or just, the jerk, be it a lawyer or a support staff member. These people are very detrimental to your culture. We've had Larry Richards speak to us, the psychologist, about group dynamics, culture, how important it is to weed out these bad actors and these chronic underperformers because they drag the whole organization down. And that's hard to do oftentimes because they're our friends. They've been with us for 40 years, maybe longer. And to take a hardened business-like approach to these issues can be challenging. Uri, anything you might add to what our panel's already said as to this opening set of data?
I think great insights. I would just piggyback on what Debbie said, which is, the focus on culture, and then the other two are quite large and also came up tremendously on our usual list: associate development, retention, recruiting. Those also were not hard challenges in the past. They just simply were not. Associates were lucky to have a job. People stayed because they love it here. I mean, that was what people used to say. So it's really, the last 2 years has flipped the focus. People are less focused on the outside, more focused on the inside, which is probably normal during let's face it, a pandemic. You're first worried about the healthier people, then you're thinking about the health generally of the business. So I think that makes sense. And then I'll just combine with what Gerry said, which is, I think most people recognize that business development will become the issue. And I think, Gerry, that's what you're alluding to, which is sometime down the road, it's going to be an issue. And we can work on fixing the house all we want, but at some point we got to keep making sure clients come in. I mean, that's just
Yep.
not going to auto drive.
No clients, no law firm. So,
Yeah.
we all have a role to play. I think it starts with client service, but let's move on here. We got a lot to cover, and that culture. That culture I think is so important, and this is good to see that managing partners are tuning in on this and being proactive. We asked among the questions when you registered, do you have this long-term workplace model figured out yet at your firm? 22% said yes. Debbie, comments on this particular set of data?
That we have such geographical challenges when it comes to this question because some of it depends where you live. I'm in Florida and many law firms here never even close. So it's a hard question for them to answer about what the future of work looks like. Compare that to the New York area, which is where I thought Gerry was. So I didn't know you were in Israel, but compare it to the New York area. And I was just in Manhattan a month ago. And while there's people on the streets now, it's not like it was before. And things are just different when it comes to geography. So I think we have to figure this out. I do think that even for firms who didn't leave the office for as long as if you were in Florida or you were in a state where you were in the office more often, people did recognize the value of that flexibility. And I think if a law firm doesn't figure out how to provide some additional flexibility, whatever that looks like for them, and I'm not the police of it's a 2-day a week or a 3-day a week or a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or it's more about whether we're coming to the office or not. It's about what hours are we working. It's about how many hours do we actually have to put in to be productive and do the things that the firm needs for us to do. It's so much more than just where will we work. It's where will we work? When will we do the work? How are we going to get the work done? And I think that it's taking a lot longer because I don't think you can solve it by just saying everybody can work from home 2 days a week. It's just a bigger problem than that.
One of the things.
Let me actually say it's a bigger opportunity than that because it is an opportunity. It's not a problem. It's an opportunity. And so many firms are choosing to not take it and trying to figure out how to just keep doing it the way they did it 3 years ago. And it will be at their own peril.
Yep. Uri and I early on said that it's time to pivot forward. The cat's out of the bag, the genie's out of the bottle. Getting people back is going to be challenging, and it's different for each firm and a variety of factors, geography, one of them. Gerry, is this surprising to you that more firms sort of haven't figured it out in terms of where they want to go with their workplace models?
Yeah, I have a real dilemma because I want to congratulate the firms that have not figured it out. And don't get me wrong, there's too little decisiveness in the practice of law, and law firm leaders should be encouraged to make some darn decisions, please. The reality is, as I see it from looking at many firms, is that we're going to need some humility here. We're going to need some humility because we don't know. We didn't know in advance the full impact of working from home in those jurisdictions where that indeed happened. We're learning more and more as time goes by. And so getting to the chase, the thing is this, 22% they've decided. Well, I hope you, maybe it's like the development of technology that Debbie could talk about. I hope you keep your eyes and ears open. I hope you keep listening. I hope you keep watching. I hope you measure and measure and measure the effectiveness of your practice group leaders, the effectiveness of so many things that we watch, because you may be surprised or taken by surprise, and that would be a bad thing. Now, for the 59% work in progress, well, I can't comment too much because I don't know where you are on that spectrum, but again, with the liberty of being able to speak out of both sides of my mouth, because I do have a law degree, the fact of the matter is that we do need to make some decisions. And the last thing I'll say is children are more, and I'm saying children on purpose, children are more unsettled when parents aren't sure what they're going to do next. It makes kids crazy. And you, law firm leaders, are the parents. And your children, and I know they're not really children, so don't get mad at me, but the metaphor I think works. Your children want certainty. They want to know you know what you're doing and you know where we're going. So you can keep the jury open, you can keep the discussions going, but you better have interim decisions and you better communicate them well.
You know, it's interesting. Firms, you propose something new to a law firm, and invariably it's like, well, who else is doing that? Who else is doing that? And by that we mean law firms like us that we know, like, and respect. They want to see the precedent, want to know where other firms are going, and those may or may not be the questions to ask. And I've got a client now spread across a whole bunch of offices trying to figure out, do we impose the same, remote working policies across all offices? Because we're a firm, don't you know? Or do we allow each office a little autonomy to figure out how it wants to do it in Mississippi versus New York versus California? And give some flexibility to the offices. And, how does that fit with consistent firm-wide culture? I mean, challenges we're facing. Let me move on, because again, this is a great discussion. I wish we had more time, and we always run out of time and wish we had more when we do these programs. And this is the last one that gives me an excuse to promote our conference a little bit. Have you been to one? And it looks like about 1 in 7 of today's callers have, and we're looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. But many of you haven't, and I would, check us out. I think, Gerry, you've been to several before, Uri, and
Can I help you?
Great experience.
Can I help you a little bit?
Of course you can.
I promise you, managing partners, and you know this, the most valuable source of information is your colleagues in different firms. I mean, the Managing Partner Forum has a beautiful balance of some experts that are around, and they'll give you some content, they'll give you some statistics, and you'll even, take polls and give each other statistics. But what the rich part of the Managing Partner Forum is these breakout groups called MPIs, which will be described in more detail in 1 second. And that's where you're sitting with peers from other firms in a well-facilitated, safe environment where you can really compare notes. And that's the population you want to hear from more than a visiting expert.
And Gerry, you're spot on. I mean, we've been reading this through the evaluations for years, that peer-to-peer interaction, high level, non-threatening environment where I can really spill my guts and learn with and from other folks who are dealing with the same issues I am in varying degrees. And having that reinforcement, that community, it's really neat. Those MPIs have just really become the core of the program. Uri, you facilitate one of these MPI sessions for what, 4 or 5 years now?
Been doing it for 4 or 5 years. Yep. Well, it's fantastic. I mean, Gerry's absolutely right. To be sitting in a room with 11 or 12 of your peers of firms just like yours, but in different locations, so there's no competitive issues. I mean, it's fantastic. What a great opportunity. I'll be there again this year. Looking forward to it. And it's a no-brainer if you can get away, right? I mean, that's the thing. You got to get there, John. They got to get there.
Yeah.
They get there, it's good. They're going to love it. No question.
Yeah. And that's our challenge, getting you to come, and giving up that couple of days. Once you're there, man, folks love it. They come back, they make friends, they talk mergers. We've had merger conversations born at the Managing Partner Conference. So it's really something.
And I want to give a specific example. May I give a specific example?
Mm-hmm.
So you're in a room with a bunch of your fellow managing partners, and an issue comes up, like should we reward origination? It's sort of a compensation riff. All right. Now, yes, you have experts, and I'm honored to be invited in that role, so I don't want to beat myself up too much. But sure, you have some people with some experience who weigh in. But get this, when the managing partner next to you says, it was the biggest mistake we ever made, now you're riveted. Why? What happened? What was the outcome? And then someone across the room says, I completely disagree. I think it was the best decision we made. And you get to ask, why is that? Why is that? I just wanted to give a little taste. That's what having your fellow managing partners in the room are about. Now, if your guest expert says, biggest mistake you can make doing X, you think, get a flight out of here early because I'm already tired of you. But if your fellow managing partner says it, then you're curious why.
Yeah. Debbie, I don't think you've come to one of our managing partner conferences before, but you'll be with us and on several panels and such. And
Yeah, I'm excited, and I've heard you all talk about the MPIs quite a bit, and I can't wait to be a part of that and hear that conversation, because like Gerry, I agree. It's one thing when we say it and we can talk about the experiences that we've had at other firms and what's been good and what's been bad, because there isn't a one size fits all. As Gerry knows, sometimes people say, can you just tell us what our comp formula should be? No, not really. But I think being in a room with your peers and having people talk about their experiences with a particular way of doing something that's incredibly valuable.
Yep. So if you're not signed up and we piqued your interest, check us out and give us a call if you want to jump in. We do have a very few places left, and we'd love to fill them up with folks from today's room. This is another polling question we're going to put out there. And this speaks to who's giving you resistance. We're going to get back to the office. Which of the constituencies within your firm is really giving you some pushback on this? And does it tend to come from the partners, the associates, or your support staff? If, in fact, you're trying to get them back to the office, who really likes that remote working arrangement and is giving you pushback to coming back in? Uri, you're in New York, mostly firms, New York, New Jersey. Can you identify which of these constituencies within the firm tend to be resistant to coming back in the city?
Associates. It's also, it's not, I think everybody knows it's not just the COVID, it's the competition. I'm going with associates.
Gerry, your prediction on this?
Same. Some of the partners can do what they want. The support staff, less so. The associates have tasted freedom, and I think they're going to be the hardest to get back.
Tasted freedom. Make it sound like a prison there. Debbie, do you care to tender a prediction on where you think our crowd's going with this question?
I think we're going support staff. I mean, I think that support staff is, oh, look at that. There we go, 54%. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, right? It's how lawyers are supported and how they like to feel supported with someone in the office. And it's also around what kind of equipment does the law firm have to buy to make a support staff person as productive and efficient at home as they can be in the office. It's about the technology they use, the access to the technology. And, for some positions like mailroom and receptionist, those are obviously much harder to deal with from a where does the person work perspective. But I'm not surprised by this answer at all.
And it varies by firm. In my conversations anecdotally, I hear from, my partners don't want to come back. I'm kind of surprised. The associates and support staff are here, but the partners don't want to come back. And, it really does vary by firm and by region. And it's a really interesting issue. And do we have different policy for the lawyers vis-a-vis support staff in terms of what our expectations are and remote working accommodations? So there's some interesting data, folks.
John,
yes,
I think the background to this question is which we didn't ask, which is who are you getting back to the office? And I think that's what Gerry's perspective, my perspective is that firms are not requiring the associates back in the office for the reasons that we were talking about. They've tasted freedom, as Gerry said so eloquently.
John, if I could just make one more quick comment, because I do.
Absolutely, Debbie Foster.
There's one other potential issue on the table, and that is speaks to culture, what we talked about at the beginning. When you're creating a hybrid policy that resembles an us versus them, I think Gerry, can you mute your mic for a second?
I'm sorry?
Can you mute your mic for a second? I think that
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can't identify where we're getting that, but thank you.
Let's see if that's better.
I thought it was you, Foster, to be honest.
I thought it was at first too, but I actually don't think that it is.
You think it's Riskin, huh?
So I think that us versus them, when the support staff, when paralegals and legal assistants and the accounting people and when they feel like they have to come to the office, but the lawyers don't, it is very hard to not create that level of resentment for the support people who figured out a way to support those lawyers during a time when they couldn't come to the office. And now they have to come back, but other people don't. And I think that is a really sticky point there around how do you build this inclusive culture when you're saying the lawyers don't have to come back to the office, but the support staff does. It's a dangerous, dangerous place.
Well, and Debbie, I'm sure you hear it, Gerry, Uri, support staff. Well, we're treated like second-class citizens around here. We're not lawyers, so.
The non-lawyers.
Just that term says it all, doesn't it?
Non-lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
And
Calibrate talks about their revenue enablers.
Right.
They're part of your
I'd like to amplify something Debbie said a moment ago. By the way, is the mic better now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I want to amplify something you said, Debbie. One of the things I noticed was during the height of the pandemic, in those areas where everybody was dispersed, the partners don't get it. They're living in this big house, and their idea of having a home office is having this plush chair in a beautiful den with a door that closes, and the associates, some of the associates and some of the support staff are at a dining room table with a spouse at the same table, also working remotely, children who remember in and out, are the schools open or are they closed? And the chairs aren't comfortable for 11 hours. I mean, I've worked with firms that actually put together budgets to buy chairs for those people so they'd be more comfortable. Heck, I worked with a few people just in a few consultations about how to separate their workspace from the dining room table from the evening at home. I mean, it may sound trite, but when we're talking about, well, we're going to have a hybrid arrangement and a certain percentage of our people are going to be allowed to work at home. Okay, but two caveats. One, you better, to your point, Debbie, I'm echoing you, you better make sure they're equipped to do so. And number two, and I won't, if I put my toe in this water, you won't get me out, so I'll just put my toe in. You better teach your leaders how to lead people who are not present in the office, because it requires different steps, different skills, and different focus.
Well said. Uri, anything to contribute?
Well, I have a different perspective, and this comes from managing partners. I do spend most of my time in New York with New York firms, as everyone knows, has been I would say the tip of the spear in terms of closing down the office. I'm not sure it's something we're proud of, but it is what it is. The staff, and this isn't something that I got, this is from one of my managing partners who said, look, I need the support staff in because I'm saving their jobs. If they're not working in the office and we can get by without them, or they're not able to do their jobs because some of their jobs are technical with computers and systems and copiers that they don't have in the house, well, then I'm saving their jobs by making them come in. So that perspective, and that has continued till today to a certain extent, even if the office is open, support staff do their job better in the office. Associates can, at least under the current system, and I think somebody will argue that, well, that's a problem with the law firm, but the reality is that many of the attorneys and the way we work have been adaptive so they can work more remotely. The support staff less so. So we need different rules for different parts, and it's not just because they're the nons. It's a job function. I know there's probably a more nuanced way to say that, but it's the job, creating the job, being able to do the work product. Different work product, different areas need to be in different locations.
You know, Gerry, you may recall we did a couple of webinars on productivity, remote working and
Yes.
productivity, how productivity is impacted. And we found that among equity partners, productivity overall was up slightly. No
Yes.
commute time, less interruption, no boundary from your work life to your home life, and we tend to start a little earlier and maybe work a little later and don't compartmentalize as much. Associates productivity about even. Support staff, how we measure their productivity is not on billable hours and collections, and it's a little harder to measure. And there's this notion that if I can't see them, they're not working, they're goofing off. And, you know, it's just not true. It's just not true. We've heard anecdotally from a lot of managing partners as well that the same folks that worked their butts off before the pandemic are the same folks that are working their butts off working remotely. And the same folks that were a little problematic in the office in terms of quote productivity and group play are the same folks with whom we're having these issues as they work remotely. It's just been a little amplified maybe because they can get away with a little more if we don't see them every day. So, it's interesting. Firms are resizing and looking at their needs for office space and support staff. And I think we found, Uri, you might collaborate, that lawyers have figured out they can be remarkably self-sufficient if they have to be, and I don't need, and particularly the young lawyers haven't needed as much support staff in terms of paralegal and legal assistants. So that's interesting as we reset and our need for the support staff to, do we need as many people? We've got a couple of more polling questions. We've got about 20 minutes left. We've talked about culture, really caring about your people and what attracts them, what keeps them. And here's something that a lot of firms were putting in place pre-pandemic, and I think more and more firms are thinking about, and that is some sort of wellness program. In terms of psychological wellness and physical wellness and financial wellness. Is your firm putting something out there in terms of a formal wellness program? That's pretty ill-defined. But Debbie, are you seeing most firms you work with working towards some sort of wellness initiatives?
I don't know that I would say most firms. I wish that most firms were, but I don't think that, even the firms that were moving in the direction of employee assistance programs, which I think were so critically important during the pandemic, I've even seen some of that wear off. Like they put that in place, but they're not really talking about it anymore. And as you all know, our benefits that we provide to our employees are only useful if we continually remind them what they are. And so while the COVID exhaustion and people don't want to really talk about it anymore, as that becomes more and more prioritized, not talking about it, I think we're not talking about a lot of things that really matter. And it goes beyond EAP. I mean, a wellness program can be just about health and wellness, like bring in a nutritionist once a month, have a yoga instructor come and do 15 minutes of chair yoga, things that you can do, stretching you can do sitting at your desk. There's so much more to it. I wish that I could say I saw a big swing in formal wellness programs, but I haven't seen anything big. I've definitely seen some firms doing it and really thinking about it. But I think that this is going to be one of those things that isn't going to be a decision that you make, a box that you check, and a check that you write. This is going to be part of what does our culture look like. We prioritize health and wellness. It can be mental health and it can be physical health, but we prioritize both of those, and we continually have resources available for our teams to make sure that they know that we care about those two things. And I wouldn't say that lots of our clients have done that.
Gerry, what say you about wellness programs and what you're seeing out there?
Well, even pre-pandemic, wellness was such a big, huge thing for the legal profession, and some firms, bless their hearts, got well into it. Oh, sorry, that did not mean that pun. They got into it and they put on programs. Heck, we did training to train internal leaders about wellness issues. But my punchline on this relates to leading people who are dispersed, especially in a hybrid situation. Uh, though, Debbie talked earlier about bumping into somebody at the coffee machine or whatever, the accidental culture stuff. The punchline is that that's gone for those who are not physically present. And you have to compensate for that and give it to them another way. Okay, I'll pause so you can talk about these results.
Uri,
Yeah, well,
you
I
have the
mean,
benefit of seeing the poll results.
yeah, well, this is interesting. I mean, I think the technical answer is almost everyone in their benefits, their health insurance has a wellness program. Whether or not it's meaningful or makes any difference is probably what we're all alluding to, which is no, not really. I would just add that in the beginning of COVID, the call around calls, the weekly calls, everyone called that wellness. And I think there was a time in 2020 towards the end where we all thought this was going to be the new norm. You really got to focus on your groups and your people and your people and your people. I don't think that had legs, to put it mildly.
Do you think, Larry Richards talks to us, and we've seen the ABA Hanley Hazleton studies about the lawyer
Right.
psychological wellness. These folks are stressed. They tend to, more so than any other profession, the substance abuse, depression rates, and lawyers are stressed out people in the best of times. And then we throw in some uncertainty and some isolation, and what's the firm leader's obligation to in fact reach out to his or her people and say, are you doing okay, can we help? And there's no stigma if you say, yes, I could use a little I'm struggling for whatever. And I don't know. I think law firms can use this as a competitive advantage. I think young lawyers want a firm that cares about them and their welfare and their career satisfaction and these sorts of things. We're starting to see firms break out, and there's a guy named John Harrity out of Northern Virginia. Check out Harrity LLP, Harrity, and how they've used wellness and social responsibility and really brought that to their culture. And John will report that we are having such great fortune attracting and retaining talent and using this kind of wellness, caring about our people as a fundamental part of our culture to a competitive advantage. So, Tebby, I'd be curious if you think there are opportunities, I love the word opportunities, to turn wellness and caring about your people into a competitive advantage. Is that
100% yes. I mean, as I just read an article about work-life balance and how we all need to stop saying that because it's really not about work-life balance. And I agree with a lot of points that were made. But I think the point that connects to this wellness topic is if we're going to provide people with a great place to work, we need to care about them. And it's more than just caring about the work they do for us when they're punched in and punched out. We need to actually care about them. And when we start learning more about our people and caring about our people, we're going to learn things that we can do as employers and as leaders in law firms that can help them be better balanced at work or in life. And I think that really becomes our obligation. If we're, and I would love nothing more than to see law firm after law firm after law firm on great place to work lists. And I think that should be an aspirational goal for people. But I don't think that's going to happen unless you have a wellness program that addresses mental wellness and physical wellness, and you have leaders at a firm that genuinely care about their people 24/7 and not just 40 hours a week.
hiring the right people, who really do care? And, we hear about the no a-hole, policies, but boy, do we see a lot of a-hole behavior from time to time within law firms. I'm trying to, reset my screen here, making sure you all, can you see the polling?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Does your firm measure employee satisfaction in any way?
can't see that. Yeah.
I'm trying to get to my polling questions, and where did they go? I do have a polling question on this, and what do you think, Gerry? Should more firms be soliciting satisfaction and making sure they're generating a good, satisfying work environment, work experience for their people?
Well, I'll tell you what, you can go back a lot of decades, and the best lawyers who attracted the most work just naturally did that. They didn't interact with the client without taking the client's temperature. How are we doing for you? How's the associate I assigned to you doing? Now, granted, that's anecdotal and it's a little bit one-on-one. And when you get to scale, then maybe you have to use a little technology to get that feedback. But my punchline on this is, would you get into a high performance car and drive at 100 miles an hour without a dashboard?
And we know the answer to that, I would hope.
Yeah, there you go. And by the way, if you ask many lawyers anecdotally, how satisfied are your clients? You get this answer. They're still using us. They paid their bills.
No.
Yep.
Anyway, over to you.
Debbie, what do you think in terms, are you seeing much of this going on? Should we see more of it, in your opinion?
Well, of course, we should see more of it. I think that law firms are oftentimes afraid, and I've heard this from our clients. We're afraid to ask our clients what they think. I regularly ask our clients, imagine inviting one of your clients to come and sit next to you and watch you get their work done. Would they be willing to pay that bill? I mean, clients largely are satisfied with their law firms because they have good relationships with the people that they're working with, and they can't solve that problem on their own, right? So I was talking to a lawyer who runs a mentoring program at a pretty large firm, and he said that the number one piece of advice that he gives to his young lawyers is very few of your clients will ever know if you're a great lawyer, but they'll know if you called them back. And I think that client satisfaction it's pretty easy to measure if we would just ask the questions. And I think there is first the organizational part of asking the questions, like who's going to ask and how are we going to ask them, and when are we going to ask them, how frequently are we going to ask them. And then it's also about thinking about what you're going to ask so you get meaningful results so you can do something about it. When I talk to our clients about asking their clients about how they're doing, I always say that they should ask a question like, what is one thing we could have done better or differently that would have changed your experience with working with our firm in a positive way? What's one thing we could have done? Stop asking people, did we do a great job? Are you happy on a scale of 1 to 10? Stop asking them that. Say, what is one thing that we could have done differently that would have made your experience better with our firm? People are much more likely to answer that, and then you have meaningful information and you can actually do something about it. But you've got to be willing to do something about it.
Yeah, I think, and you have to have the confidence to ask the question and be prepared for the answers. Be careful what you ask for. And when I was in-house doing marketing at Gunster down in South Florida, we had a non-lawyer, love the word, CEO. This guy was empowered and authorized to ensure on performance and behavior. And not all the lawyers liked giving that much authority to the non-lawyer. But boy, did he get that firm thinking institutionally. Firm first, shared goals, accountability. And he and I, proposed to the partnership, we're going to go out and visit clients and ask how we're doing. Independent third party, and come back with what we hear. And the pushback, for whatever reason, from the billing attorneys, my client, no one talks to my client but me. They're going to see through your thinly veiled marketing charade. All sorts of reasons why that was just a stupid idea. But guess what? That non-lawyer CEO said, no, we're going. First, they're our clients, not yours, his, or hers. They're ours. And we're going. And he fought that battle, and it was amazing. The clients loved it, absolutely loved it, and shared such valuable information that we could bring back. And the lawyers were, I think, paranoid that we'd bring back a negative report card. And that wasn't our intent at all. But well, boy, what a valuable and rich exercise. So your clients, your people, they're your two most important constituencies. Here the answers are coming in. Debbie, I'm going to ask you to guess how many firms claim to solicit feedback from either lawyers or support staff. What do you
Well, I
think?
hope no one answers yes, lawyers only, or yes, staff only. I hope no one answers that. I feel like we're going to get more no's than anything else, though.
Gerry, do you care to offer a prediction? How many firms are soliciting employee feedback from either lawyers or staff? Gerry? Is Gerry out there?
Sorry, I muted by accident. I hope at least a third have an affirmative answer.
Uri, you want to put your experience on the line with a prediction?
I think we're going to see a higher number than we did before the pandemic. I think more people think they do it. I'm not sure they do it regularly. Let's see what people said.
There you go.
No.
You know, I have a couple of clients that have set up culture indexes within their firms to try to assess satisfaction, because happy people are loyal, they're productive. You know, don't be afraid. Reach out to your people, talk with them, not at them. So yeah, more of this. We've found this consistently. We've asked this question frequently over the years. Are you talking to your clients? Are you talking to your people? And consistently, we find that about 4 in 5 law firms say no. Anything to add before we move on, panel?
I would just say that I think that that question or that set of questions, whatever that might be in Gallup, provides some really great framework for questions around employee engagement. And I would encourage people to go look at the Gallup Employee Engagement Survey. But I think that maybe the most important takeaway about asking those questions is don't ask them once. It is decide on what your group of questions are, ask them, and then ask them again 6 months later, and then compare your trend. Are you doing better, worse, or the same? And if you're doing worse or the same, you got to fix something. You got to change something. We all have room to do better. So I think it's great to think about doing this, but I think it's even better to think about making this part of what you do.
I would add just one thing, and that is this. Many of my clients want a competitive advantage. They want to do better. And I tell them, look at a survey answer like that. The bar is so low, you don't even have to bend your knee to step over it. You just do a little bit of this and it puts you in the top 1%. Go for it.
Spot on, Larry or Gerry. We do KPIs. We're going to do a session on Thursday morning in Atlanta on KPIs. What are you measuring? And of course, we're measuring billable hours and collections and origination and all these financial KPIs. But what about the non-financial KPIs, like client satisfaction, attrition, employee satisfaction? And these more difficult to measure, but really important metrics that you might want to set up and monitor, as Debbie says, not just once, but compare over time how you're doing to improve internal communication, feedback and evaluation, whatever it is, and really tuning into your people and putting that up the best you can. You're hearing them, you're responding to them. I think that's the key to engagement. Really tuning into your people, asking those questions, responding to what you learn best you can. Pretty simple, Gerry, as you said, low bar. Low bar. What kind of questions do you think we should be asking our employees, Debbie, just off the top of your head?
I mean, we have a we have 5 questions that we recommend that our clients ask, and I would be happy to send those to you to send as a follow-up. It's just a framework to get started. They are questions like, would you recommend one of your friends, and a net promoter score type question, would you recommend one of your friends or family members work at the firm? There's a question about, do you feel well supported? There is a question about, do you have the right tools that you need to get your work done efficiently? I can't remember what the other 2 are, but I think that if you pick 3 to 5 questions, it does not have to be 10 questions. In fact, sometimes we over-engineer the survey, just 3 or 4 or 5 questions. But I would be happy to share those with you, John, and you can share them afterwards. And it's a good place to start.
Yeah, Debbie, send it on and we'll incorporate it into the follow-up we'll send to everybody tomorrow, Thursday, Friday at the very latest. But that's a great takeaway. And thank you for sharing. Keep it simple, folks. Lawyers like to overcomplicate and, analysis paralysis, and keep it simple. Start out with a tricycle before you move to a 10-speed, and just get in the rhythm. But it's a good thing to be doing on a regular basis. Gerry, anything to add?
Look, a star employee that left a firm and the firm was sad told me that in 12 years, no one had shown any regard for their views or how satisfied they were. It's binary. Heck, we're not asking our employees anything. So again, turn the switch on. Take Debbie's questions as a great start and listen to John. Riff on that and listen well. Yeah, the reward will be huge.
I did this little panel for a bunch of young lawyers at one of the defense bar associations. And what are you looking for as a young lawyer, as a star up and comer within your firm? What are you looking for? And that engagement, that care, that concern, that interaction, the feedback, the evaluation, so meaningful. And I get so little. And boy, little things go a long, long way. So I think we've dispensed some pretty good advice here among the 4 of us. Uri, anything you might add before we look to the top of the hour and close down our discussion?
I'm going to add one more to the list. So we got regularly, ask them. Keep it simple, don't overcomplicate it. The third, and I will add this, which was from my Empire in 2019. I'm going to give that credit there, which
Like
is
the Empire, love it.
you have to act on it and respond on them regularly too. That's your credibility, because nothing kills this whole process if people start getting cynical and people start putting it in the wastebasket. Look, this goes for all initiatives at the firm, but this one certainly. And you're walking on thin ice because this is a new thing you're doing in most firms. So now, how are you going to show your credibility? Your credibility. Do you take it seriously? Do you give feedback to the individual? And then at the next meeting, when you announce this new initiative, do you say, I think, Debbie, you alluded to this, you said, we heard you folks. We thought this was a great idea. Keep the ideas coming. Thanks, Gerry, for the great idea. And that closes the loop and enhances the credibility and pushes it forward.
Yeah, the employee suggestion box in the break room that hasn't been opened in 3 years. Not what we're talking about, folks. And you can't necessarily do it all, but you can. We've heard you, we appreciate it, and we're working on it. And here's what we're going to deliver. And responding to what you learn and say you care about. And so often it's little things. I remember in that nasty recession, we're going to take away the Friday donuts. Oh my God. To save a couple $1,000s a year, we're going to take away the donuts. And the pushback from support staff on the donuts. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish. So I'm looking here. We are out of time, and the time has sailed by as it typically does when we gather. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Debbie Foster, for coming back from your vacation and finding your way to a quiet spot to join us. Thank you, Gerry Riskin. Always great to see you. Look forward to seeing both of you in a couple of weeks' time. Uri, let me toss to you any parting shots, and then we'll call it a day.
Great insights from Debbie and Gerry. Looking forward to speaking more with them at the event in May. It's the place to be. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Uri. Thank you again, Debbie and Gerry. We'll see everybody in a few weeks. And thank you for joining us today, those of you in the audience. And we hope to see you again at an upcoming MPF program. So have a great afternoon, and thank you for being with us.
Thank
Bye-bye
you.
now.